Clemson beat Syracuse yesterday, 27-21. I got a bunch of texts from people saying that this was an indictment on Clemson and now they've been exposed. You know the drill, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't their best effort. That's the whole point. We were wondering aloud on if you watch this show, you know I've been wondering for about the past 2 or 3 weeks, when is that C-plus game coming? Because they've put forth a string of B-plus or better efforts. It started with what was it? I guess it was the Wake Forest game. They played the NC State game. They went to Boston College. They went to Florida State. And then they had Syracuse coming in there. And they just weren't going to keep playing at that level. Well, it was coming eventually. Well, it came yesterday. They benched DJ Uiagalelei in this game, for those of you who didn't see it. Cade Klubnik came in. So what we talked about in the preseason did end up happening yesterday. And I'm going to talk about that more in just a second. But this is the 38th straight home victory. That's the headline. Clemson found a way to win. Was it pretty? Absolutely not. Were there questionable officiating decisions? There are in every college football game nowadays. I do not watch a single replay now without at least one egregious officiating decision. But here's a padlock stat for you. For all of, here we go, there we go. For all of the moaning and gnashing of teeth around Clemson and their inadequacies yesterday, they turned the ball over 4 times. That's not good, right? That's not the padlock stat. The padlock stat is Syracuse generated a grand total of 1 touchdown, 7 points, if you count the extra point, off of those 4 turnovers. You should, on average, be around 4.5 points, averaging 4.5 points per turnover, which means you should be around 18 points netted if you turn the ball over or force 4 of them, and that's just not what happened yesterday. This is where dynamic players win you games. Will Shipley, for Clemson, is a dynamic player, and he had a career day yesterday. 172 on the ground, that's a career high, had 2 touchdowns. He won the game for him. Not single-handedly, but when things were not going right, when you're benching a quarterback, you bring Klubnik in, I think he threw like 4 passes. Will Shipley took the game over when it had to be taken over. Now, I mentioned DJ got benched in the game. I know some of you already saw it, and maybe some of you saw the sound I'm about to play. I got to tell you something. He is 19 or 20 years old, DJ Uiagalelei. He's starting quarterback for Clemson. I'm going to go ahead and tell you before we play this clip, this was Dabo Swinney after the game. As far as DJ goes, DJ's our starter. He's our leader. Nothing's changed there. So he got yanked out of this game, and the true freshman got put in because he wasn't good enough yesterday, and they wanted to try something different because they were trying to win the game. Now, that affects people many different ways. How did it affect DJ Uiagalelei? If you're 40, 50, 60 years old, I want you to listen to what's about to be said. Pretend that you're just reading these words off a piece of paper, though. How old would you think this person is? And then remember, when you're actually listening to this is a college kid talking, sounding like someone well beyond his years. Roll it, Colin.
At the end of the day, for me, man, stats isn't everything. My main number 1 stat is to win and lose. And today we got a W by K going out there and get a W. And that's Coach Swinney's number 1 job. Is we have 135 guys on this team, and at the end of the day, his responsibility is the team, not me. And for Coach Swinney to go out there and make that decision, I mean, that's the number 1 decision to make. And I appreciate Kay for going out there and getting a W. I appreciate Coach Swinney for making that change. And I appreciate everyone on the team for rallying and getting this W. I mean, that was a hard-fought game. Offensive line stepped up. Receivers played great. Running back, Shipley had an amazing game. Same thing with Maffa. And defense, I would they have 5 sacks today. So it was an unbelievable game overall.
Yeah, that's Pate State material. He's more well-spoken than half the coaches that we hear from after games. I mean, that's a measured kid. Knows the full scope of the game, knows the whole full scope of the team, and that's genuine. He's not reading off a cue card, guys. That's just him talking after the game. And that's also someone who's heard the noise all year. So this isn't something that snuck up out of nowhere. I've talked about it on this show. I told you in the preseason. I thought there was coming a day where he was going to get pulled out of that game. Didn't know which one. And I thought that eventually it was going to be Cade Klubnik's team. Well, part of that happened yesterday. So that's been a little quiet drumbeat. He's not ignorant to that. He's not immune to hearing that. And so that's how he handled himself. I wanted to present that to you because that's how a grown man handles his business. That's how an adult handles his business. And this is college football, so it's not always like that. Again, to reiterate, he is still the starting quarterback there. Dabo said, as far as DJ goes, he's our starter, he's our leader, nothing's changed there. You want to know what else can really give you the freedom to have an off day offensively? Well, it's called defense. And yesterday, they had 5 sacks and 9 tackles for loss, which is just kind of, that's the MO for Clemson now. They held Syracuse to 119 yards. They pitched a shutout in the second half. 119 and a shutout in the second half. I'm a believer that this was not a bad day for Clemson football. I'm a believer they'll be better for having gone through what they went through yesterday, because here's how I look at it. Okay, you could say all you want to. If that team shows up to play Georgia in a semifinal game, they'll get beat. Well, that team won't show up to play Georgia in a semifinal game, because you're not going to get Clemson's C-plus effort in a high-profile game where you got 3 or 4 weeks to prepare. That's not realistic, guys. You know that. Nor are you going to get Georgia's effort against Missouri if they played in a semifinal game. You know how this stuff works. You know when those teams get to postseason play, you get whatever the best version of them is. You didn't get Clemson's best version yesterday. But what does happen is some of the mortar that fits between the bricks on that team that you call players, the difference between individuals and a team, that coalescing, that gelling, a lot of it is a result of going through stuff like they went through yesterday. They're not supposed to win that game. They're supposed to lose that game, and they ended up pulling it out. And sure as we sit here, later in the year, they'll be in a dogfight with someone, maybe in the ACC title game, maybe in a playoff game, maybe they're in the national championship. Stuff that happened yesterday that they survived will end up benefiting them. So that's not the worst thing in the world. You never want to be in those situations, of course. You want to blow everyone out. But after you've gone through it, Dabo Swinney probably drove home yesterday and knew that he had a lot to correct. That's fun. That's the challenge of being a coach. But he also probably had a little smile at some point and understood, we dodged one today. We found a way. It's nice to know we can do that. Updated odds to win the ACC. It is still Clemson and North Carolina 1-2. A lot of distance between them. But then, should be noted, there's a lot of distance between North Carolina and Wake and Syracuse, who are 3-4. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure and leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.